Welcome to Journey to Novelist. This channel is devoted to new writers and those writers new to pursuing the goal of becoming a published author. And this video is part of a series of videos where we are doing some software battling. And this is going to be video 2 for the first matchup, video 1. There is a link in the upper right corner where we pitted Dabble against Motif. Now, what are all these battles about? Well, recently I did a video where I came up with a list of 30 different softwares that I found that were available here in 2025. A lot of them were ones that you download and installed on your device, and quite a few of them were ones that you worked on online through your browser, basically in a cloud environment. And of those ones that were in that cloud environment, quite a few of them had the same purpose. And that is, they had a editing environment where you could go in, write your story there, and it had tools to help you stay organized, to plot and plan, maybe to move your chapters around, keep track of characters, settings, and that kind of thing to help you along with your writing process. Now, if you want to see that full list of 30 different titles that I created, there's a link to it in the upper right corner, and that's available to watch. Now, we're going to take the 12 softwares I found that fall into this editor category from that list, as well as one I found after I completed the video, and pit them against each other in head-to-head matchups to see which ones come out on top. And to do that, I loaded the 13 titles I had into a randomizing wheel and did matchups, and every time a pair was matched up, I would remove them from the wheel. So today we're going to be moving on to matchup 2 in this 6-part series, and we're going to be pitting Campfire against Reedsy Studio. And I will apologize for my air conditioner coming on and off as I record this video. I am in Arizona and it is summer. Campfire writing can be found at campfirewriting.com, and Reedsy Studio can be found at reedsy.com/studio. They both have a free option, so if you're looking for free software to use for your writing, then either one of these is a possibility. But be warned, for Campfire, if you're writing more than 25,000 words, you are going to end up paying a little bit for their manuscript module, because their free version is limited to 25,000 words. So let's go ahead and look at how we're going to be doing these matchups. And what we're doing is, I came up with a list of features or tasks that we need to do whenever we're doing a novel. And these are just very basic things that we want the softwares to be able to handle. I have several categories here. One of them is project setup, and I've assigned a number of points that these softwares can earn if they complete all the steps. Plus, they can get bonus points if they do something particularly well. For project setup, we want to be able to create a novel and possibly even stick that novel into some sort of a grouping to say that it's part of a series. We want to be able to put in our pen name, a genre, a date, a title, and a subtitle. And then the third thing here is to choose a structure or template for our story structure to help us stay organized. Now, I'm putting this with the project setup because that's where a lot of the times you need to do this. So let's go ahead and look at what these softwares look like. Here I'm in my browser and I have both softwares loaded up. This is the Campfire writing environment, or Campfire, and this is Reedsy Studio. So the first thing we're going to want to be able to do, according to our list here, is to create that novel project and maybe put it in a series. And of course, when we're doing this, we're probably going to be trying to put in this title to name our project, and we'll see about putting the rest of this information in there as well. So back to my browser, and I am running the Opera browser in case anybody is curious. So right here in Campfire, you see we have a place here to create a new project. That makes it very intuitive to start a new project, and that's what we really want with these softwares, is them to be intuitive. If setting up a project is really easy, we just hit the new project, create a new project, and it does a little setup in the background to get some things ready for us. I'm going to hit this back button so that I can come here to this card it creates, and I'm going to go ahead and put my book title right here on this card. And the name of the book we're going to be using as our sample is Deadpan Promotion. And this was randomly generated. Now, as far as title, subtitle, genre, there's no specific place that I could find in Campfire for those items, so it won't get that point. But This card does have this description space, so I can put the information here, and I'm going to for now. So there I put my genre, my started date, and my pen name for this particular book. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing in Reedsy for creating a book. And we come in here, and there's a button that says Create Book. Also very easy to find, so we just hit that, and we go ahead and put the title of our book and our subtitle. And I'm going to go ahead and say it's Book 1 because this Deadpan promotion is going to be part of a series. So we hit Create Book. So now I have a little card here that is for Deadpan promotion. I'm going to give Reedsy 2 points for this. They did have a place to easily set up the project, and then putting in the book title and subtitle was really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and give them 2 points just for that being super simple. Over in Campfire, we have the board here. Now, they did not have a place for subtitles, so I'm not giving them that point for the extra information. It was just I'm using this description for that purpose. But now I see that there is a button here for new folder, which I can click that and give it a series name for my series of books, which are called the Lost in Between books. And this folder can be for my series. So now I can take and come over here and move my book into this folder for Lost in Between. And that satisfies the second part of our first task, which is putting our book as part of a series. So Campfire is going to get a point for that. So far, they both have 2 points in this first set. Now, the third thing was, of course, to do this choosing a story, structure, and template, and having that available for our project. And we're going to look for that in the 2 different softwares. So for Campfire, we're just going to go into our folder for our project, and then we're going to open our project. And it takes a little bit of setup to move there. And here is the actual environment that you use for working on your project. And you'll see it lists all the different modules that Campfire has available, including this one that is manuscript. And the manuscript module, if I click here, you'll see they have a grid system for it, or you can go ahead and add your chapters in this section. I could not find anything in here for actually putting a template or a story structure. But a quick search online did tell me that if I come down to timeline and go into the canvas for timeline, hit the view button and go to manage templates, they have a bunch of story templates here. So I'm just going to click this hero's journey right here and load this. And now I have a story structure available to use whenever I'm working. So it is here in Campfire. So they do get a point for having a story structure available and a template to follow. In fact, I'm going to be giving them 2 points because not only do they have one, but they actually have a large variety of them to choose from. So now let's go back to Reedsy and let's go into their writing environment and see what they have available. And again, it takes just a little bit for them to do some back-end stuff to get things set up and ready. And this is the actual place you do your writing for Reedsy Studio. They have some front matter information here that you can turn on and off if you want to use it, and some back matter, and then the place where your chapters go. And then they have some buttons over here. This is to create boards, and they do have this planning board already created for you. And this has an example of the hero's journey on it. And although this is here and it is a story structure, this is here specifically as an example for how to use their boards and what you can do with them. It is not a recreatable board. If I delete this board, I could not find any way to actually bring this back. So I can't give Reedsy Studio a point for having a story structure. Hero's Journey is the only one here, and it's only here as, like I said, an example. So I'm not giving Reedsy any points for having a story structure. So for this first set of tasks, so far Campfire has 4 points and Reedsy Studio has 2. So let's move on to the next grouping. So we're going to be looking at this brainstorming, major plot points, story arcs, identifying and developing subplots, and some of the other tools that might be available for planning. If they do this well, if they have plenty of ways to go about plotting and planning, then they can get up to 4 points, or even more if they have a lot of features and tools. Let's go ahead and go back and look specifically for the plotting and planning items. Now here in Reedsy, our plotting and planning is done on these boards that you can create. Just like they did here with making this hero's journey example, you can create a board and give it an icon for what you want to use the board for. So maybe I wanted to develop a romance theme for our story. I could put some little hearts and say this is going to be for developing the romance in the story, and I can create a board for that, and now I have a romance board to put anything having to do with the story's romance on. But that's pretty much all they have for the plotting and planning in Reedsy Studio, is these boards that you have to do on your own. Now let's look at Campfire. This is a timeline board, which is a way of doing your plotting and planning in a timeline. They also have calendars that you can use, and we'll just go ahead and open one of those. And you'll see you can create your own calendar or use a Georgian type calendar, and then you get the option of adding events to your calendar as well. Coming back here, we can also do arcs, and I can add an arc, and it would ask you to find an element for creating your arc for. So we can't actually do this yet because we don't have any elements to follow for our arc, but there is that option of using arc. So we have multiple ways to do things: timelines, calendars, and arcs. So there's quite a few ways to go about your plotting and planning in Campfire that aren't available in Reedsy Studio. So for this whole plotting and planning of your beats, I'm going to give Campfire 3 points because they do have at least 3 distinct ways of going about doing your plotting and planning and tools for those. For Reedsy Studio, I'm giving them 1 point because they have one way of handling those, and that is their boards. Nothing special about them, they're just boards. So let's go ahead and jump right to our next set of tasks here. We want to be able to create characters, we want to be able to create settings, possibly identify the purpose of them. We'd like to have some questionnaires or templates to follow when we're creating them to help us brainstorm so that you can build your characters with some sort of a prompting system. We would like to have some place to put images, notes, and maps, and things that can help us keep track of our world, and also maybe to even track objects that are important to the story. Because in some stories, the object is almost important as a character. So we want to be able to look and see how these two programs handle this information. So let's jump right back into the softwares again. And for Reedsy, we only have the one option. We can create a board for characters, we can create a board for settings, we can create a board for the important objects, but it's whatever we come up with, and all we're doing is using these boards with different cards or notes added to them. You can, however, also, I believe, add images onto these boards right here as part of your notes. So I could add an image if I was in the paid version. I can't actually show you an example, but I will give them the point for having a place to put images if you're paying. So I can't count it against the software because there is a place for images. But they only have this one option. I'm going to go ahead and give them a point because you can put the information somewhere and you can use it for adding images and sketches if you're paying. and you could use it to create a list of important objects. So I'm going to go ahead and give them 3 points because you can handle these things using the boards. You're just on your own. I cannot give them a point for any type of questionnaires or templates. Now, in the Campfire area, let's look and see what they have for characters and settings. They actually have a module for characters, so I could add a character with this little plus sign. And I'm going to go ahead and add our character here. And this character is going to be named Devin. So I can add him there. Then they have these boards for the characters to help you identify things about them. Their bio, physical traits, personality traits. So you can just add items to the list. But you do have some templates to help prompt you. So right away they're going to get points for having some questionnaires and templates and having a place for characters. So let's go back to the elements, and you'll see here we also have a place specifically for locations or settings. So I could create a location that said office. And again, there is a template. And then you'll find here that there is actually a place for maps that I can create maps in. I can add images to any of these boards. If I'm in this location, I could easily rearrange some of these windows. Here I could add a panel, and I could insert an image panel right here. And then maybe I could add a picture of my office cubicle for my character. Now the other thing is objects, and if you come down here, you'll see they do have a list for items, and you can actually put in the important items that you need to keep track of in your story. In this case, we want a gate key. So we can do all those things in Campfire. So I'm giving them the full 7 points for the character setting and creation, and I'm going to go ahead and award Reedsy 3 points for this section because you can put in them. You're just using that same tool of using a board. So let's look at the next section. This is the writing environment itself and how it functions and what kind of tools are available. We want to be able to create chapters, possibly scenes or parts for our story, and arrange them and edit the text, of course. And then we want to kind of look and see if we have choice of fonts and background margins and how the speed of the typing is for these environments. So let's go ahead and jump right back into the browser here for these. And since we're looking at the writing environment, we are going to be looking at the manuscript section here. And I need to go ahead and add a chapter. And I'm going to just start out by doing this: create a blank document for my first chapter. I'm going to go ahead and put some text. Now I did have a little bit of lag as I was typing here, but a lot of this is going to depend on your actual computer and the speed of your internet as to whether or not it slows down on you. I do see a little lag. I do have some options of some fonts here. Maybe if I pick Merriweather. You can also highlight text and give it underlines or bold it. I can add a text color to it, red and bold, and I can zoom in and out on my entire page. I can also add comments, which is a little bit slow, it looks like. Font size, line spacing, alignment. I can enable typewriter mode, and this usually works with your text staying pretty much in the center of the page. As I write, my text goes up the screen, and I keep my cursor centered where it is. If typewriter mode is turned off, then you'll have to scroll the document. So see the cursor is moving down on the page is not adjusting. So that's a nice feature to have. So let's see about creating additional chapters. That's really easy. I just added another plus and I get another chapter. I'll just call this chapter 2 and create a blank document for it again. And now I have 2 chapters and I can drag and drop them here in the list. So that allows to rearrange it. And then I have these boards here as well where I can get information about my story. I can even apply statuses to them. I can rename them. So there's quite a bit there as far as managing your chapters. Under this manuscript, here I can create a new folder. So I could use new folders for the parts of my story. So I could rename the folder to Act 1 maybe. And go ahead and move that to the top and put my couple of chapters in under Act 1. So that would work for creating acts. So I'm going to give Campfire 2 points for that, 1 point for being able to arrange, so that's 3 points. And it does have spell checking. Spelled wrong, you see that these are all highlighted. So I could pick the word I wanted from the list for my spell checking. So that's Campfire and its environment. Let's look and see what Reedsy offers as far as this. So we're here in this writing environment and we need to go to the manuscript. And you see it starts with a chapter 1 and I could just go ahead and start writing here for chapter 1. So it does have spell checking. I can rename my chapter by just changing the title here. And I can easily add more chapters by hitting this plus button up here and say new chapter. And I can also add parts. And I can rename the parts by typing here. So I can do all that same as I can in Campfire as far as creating chapters and parts. I'm going to call this Act 2. We can easily rearrange them. It does have spell checking. I don't see anything for saving in any particular location or anything like that. As far as the fonts and what I have available, I have a little bit of control here under the settings where it says font size, where you can be small, medium, or large. This theme really just changes the heading and basic font styles. It's not a lot of control. And that's basically all you have here. You do have the ability, however, in Reedsy to split a chapter. So if I didn't use these scissors, I could actually split this into a new chapter pretty quickly. And now I have a new chapter 2 that just has the text that was below where I did the split. So for the tools that are available in the 2 editors, I'm going to go ahead and give Campfire a total of 4 points and Reedsy a total of 3 points for their editing environment and what kind of features they have available. They both show the word counts. You'll see the word count here. And this one has a word count for the manuscript as well. So let's go ahead and look at the next item on our list. And that is file project management. Be able to import text, export text, and seeing if there's any place for backups and versioning in these two different softwares. So we already found that here under the file, there is some tools that you can use for your project. You can actually import a document here. So if I do import a document, I can drag and drop a file. In this case, I'm going to do one called import text. And I get a choice of what to do with it. In this case, I have headings in this one. So at heading breaks, I'm going to break the document into chapters. And I'm going to import that. You'll see now I have two new chapters, one called The Gate and one called Bad Day, which was really easy to do. Under Edit, I can cut and paste text here. Under File, I also have some version history. So let's go ahead and see if Reedsy has anything for versioning. And if I look at the writing timeline, you'll see it does have automatic versioning that happens. So they both have versioning abilities. For Reedsy, importing text is going to require you to copy and paste, or if you are on your bookshelf, you can import an entire book in. So if I take that same file I had and assumed it was a book, we can just go ahead and say import book, and it's going to be processing the import and trying to create a new book for the text I have here. And this has worked before. It seems like my internet's going a little slow. I'm just going to cancel it, but it does eventually import the text as a book. So both of them have abilities to import text, but Campfire's, I think, has a little bit more control over where the text goes. Here you have to either import the entire book or do copy paste. But I'm going to give them both a point for being able to import text in some way. They also both have ways to export text. Here in the Manage of Deadpan Promotion and go to Exports, I have some ways I can get my book out of Reedsy and into some other file. I can back up my book with this button, and it says it's being typeset and will be emailed shortly. But if I just click there, I can also download from this link that it created. I can just download the book there to a file, and then I can open the file, which I'll do that off to the side, and just show you that it did indeed export my book, and that is as a docs document, a docx. You can also here in Exports print it to a PDF or to an EPUB file as well. So you can export information. In Reedsy, you can also hit the export book right here, and that's going to take you over to that same page, so you don't actually have to go back out to your Manage tab, your bookshelf. Here in the manuscript in Campfire, you can do some exporting of elements right here, where you can do a particular chapter, or you could use this drop down and say all the manuscript, or you could pick just a particular item in here. And you could export as a PDF if you want to, or as a doc file, HTML, or an RTF. So you have some options for your export there. You also have the ability to come to the Publish and Compile for export here. And here you are able to put in information about your story. Here is a place to put a subtitle if you want. So and then go ahead and give a series title. The book's number in the series, this would be book 1 of the series, the edition, publication, and the author name. So you could put your pen name here. But this is only at the time of compiling it. And then you could go ahead and export it or preview the export. You have the ability to change the style settings and add which sections you include in the book. And this creates an actual PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and open that and bring it up here where you can see it. And you'll see that this created a PDF with the text that we had available here with the chapter names. So that's the publish option here under the, which will get you your PDF or EPUB the same as Reedsy does. So there are multiple ways to get your information out of Campfire so that you have a record of it. Now, I also looked for a thesaurus in both of these programs and could not find it, so neither one of them will get a point for having a thesaurus. Before the import and export, I think they're pretty equal on what they have available. So I'm actually giving both programs 3 points for this final section of file and project management. They both have some type of versioning. They both have some way of importing, and they both have some way of exporting. Now I'm going to award both Campfire and Reedsy 4 points for this section. In this rundown, they are both certainly usable programs. I think I prefer Campfire a little bit more. And in the end, Campfire does win this with 22 points, and Reedsy Studio got 13 points. So the winner of this matchup, Campfire. If this video was helpful for you at all, please like and subscribe. If you want to see that full list of 30 options for software, the link is here on this page. Join us again for our third matchup here at Journey to Novelist.